understanding your own body now pays dividends for the next 30 years. 50 is not the beginning of decline. 50 is the first time most women have enough data, enough life experience, enough self-awareness to actually do this right. The women I see who optimize in their 50s are often performing at a higher level in their 60s than they were in their 40s. And that is not an accident.
Welcome to Health Decoded, your #1 source for real health information, with your hosts, Dr. Alessi and Matt Tack.
Health Decoded listeners, if you're dealing with bloating that just won't go away, no matter what you eat, no matter what you try, I need you to hear this. The bloating isn't the problem. It's a signal. Every external symptom you're experiencing, the discomfort, the fatigue, the frustration, has a root cause. And in my years of clinical practice, it almost always leads back to the gut. Nothing else in your body can fully heal until that foundation is restored. I built this framework from my own health journey. I was that patient, frustrated, dismissed, searching for answers. I took everything I learned, refined it through years of clinical testing, and have since helped hundreds of patients achieve complete relief from their symptoms. That became the Total Gut Reset, a step-by-step protocol with one goal: reset your gut in 6 months or less. If you're ready to learn exactly what's causing your symptoms and eliminate them for good, I'm hosting a free webinar where I walk you through the entire framework. The link is in the show notes. Go ahead and register, and I'll see you there. I want to tell you about a patient that, for sake of this episode, I'll call her Sarah. Sarah was 52. She ran a department of 40 people. She was up at 5:30 every morning. She was working out 4 days a week. She was eating by most standards really well. No junk food, no alcohol to speak of, lean protein, vegetables, the whole thing. And she was exhausted. She wasn't just tired. She was like that dead, exhausted type of feeling. The kind of exhausted where you sit in the car after work for 10 minutes before you can bring yourself to go inside. The kind where your brain stops cooperating around 2 p.m. and you're running on caffeine and willpower to get you through your day. She'd had her blood work done twice. Her doctor told her everything looked normal. Her thyroid was fine. Her CBC was fine. Her metabolic panel was fine. And then, because she's the kind of woman she is, she assumed the problem was just her. Maybe she needed to sleep more. Maybe she was just stressed. Maybe this is just what 52 feels like. When she came to see me, she was almost like apologetic, like she was wasting my time. She said, and I remember her saying this, "I know I'm probably fine. I just don't feel like myself anymore." And I want to tell you what I told her. You are not fine. You are not sick either. You are underperforming. And those are completely different problems with completely different solutions. By the time we finished her initial workup, we found a subclinical hypothyroidism that her standard TSH had completely missed, a cortisol curve that had completely flattened, no morning spike, no normal rhythm that we should see, and her gut was producing almost no short-chain fatty acids, which meant her mitochondria was basically running on fumes. She wasn't broken. She was running this high-performance engine on the wrong type of fuel, with a clogged filter, and nobody had actually ever looked under the hood properly. And that's what this episode is about. If you've ever sat in your car after work and you've wondered when you stop feeling like yourself, this is for you. Welcome to Health Decoded. I'm Dr. Alessi, founder and clinic director of Ascend Functional Health here in Tampa Bay. This episode is going to be part 1 of a 4-part mini-series that I'm recording specifically for the woman who is doing everything right by conventional standards and still doesn't feel the way she knows that she should. If that's you, stay with me for the next 30 minutes. This changes how you think about your health permanently. Let's get into it. Let me start with a question. What does healthy actually mean? If you asked your conventional doctor, the answer is probably your labs are within normal range, your blood pressure is acceptable, you're not presenting with any diagnosable condition. Congratulations, you're healthy. I'll see you next year at your checkup. but that is the absolute floor. That is the bare minimum definition of not sick. And somewhere along the line, we've accepted that not sick and thriving are actually the same thing, but they're not even close to the same thing. Think about elite athletics for a second. When a professional cyclist wants to optimize their performance, they don't go to their primary care physician and ask if their CBC is normal. They get a VO2 max test, they get lactate threshold testing, they get detailed hormone panels timed to their training cycles. They look at mitochondrial function, they track their sleep architecture, not just hours of sleep. They optimize, they don't just survive. Now, why is that standard only for professional athletes? Why is the woman who's running a business, raising a family, managing a household, still trying to take care of herself? Why is she expected to operate on a completely different framework where the only bar is nothing's wrong? That's the gap. And it's a very big gap. The women that I work with most, they're typically in their 40s or 50s, high functioning by external measure, and has a list of things that she's accepted as normal that are absolutely not normal. So let me read you some of them. And this maybe is a wake-up call for a lot of people. Waking up tired despite getting 8 hours of sleep. Carrying weight around the midsection that wasn't there 10 years ago, and it doesn't respond to diet or exercise the way that it used to. A brain that feels foggy or slow, especially in the afternoon. A libido that has quietly disappeared. Joints that are achy. Moods that feel flatter than it used to be. A sense that your drive and motivation, which used to be your superpower, are running at about 60% now. And she's been told these things are aging or stress or anxiety or, this is my personal least favorite, that's just what happens at this stage of life. Now, if I had $1 for every time somebody said that to me, I it would be way too much. I want to be very direct with you. That is not aging. That is underperformance. And it has clinical causes that can actually be identified and addressed. So let's get into some of that. Let's get into what I call the 5 signals that you've learned to ignore. I want to walk you through these performance signals, and these are things your body is telling you that you've probably been ignoring, or worse, just accepting at this point. So signal number 1, energy that doesn't recover. Not tiredness after a hard day. I'm talking about a baseline fatigue that sleep doesn't fix. You got 8 hours and you wake up unrefreshed. You need caffeine just to get started and you hit a wall every afternoon. That is not normal. That is almost always driven by either HPA axis dysregulation, meaning your cortisol rhythm is off, mitochondrial inefficiency, thyroid dysfunction, or some combination of the 3. And these things are measurable, and yes, they are fixable. Signal number 2, body composition that resists effort. You are doing the things, you're eating well, you're exercising, but the scale won't move. Or it moves and then it comes right back. Or the body fat has redistributed to places that it never was before, particularly around the belly. That is a hormonal and metabolic signal. Insulin resistance, cortisol elevation, estrogen dominance, thyroid insufficiency, any and all of these changes where your body stores fat and whether it will release it are affected by this. And effort alone cannot override biochemistry. Signal number 3 is that cognitive performance decline, brain fog, inability to retrieve words, difficulty concentrating, feeling like you're operating through a layer of glass. Again, this is not aging. This is almost always inflammation, gut-brain axis disruption, or hormone disruption. Estrogen is neuroprotective, and when it fluctuates or drops, cognitive clarity goes with it. Neuroinflammation, I just did an episode on this last week, is driven very often by compromised gut barrier. It impairs the very mitochondria that your neurons depend on. Signal number 4, sleep that doesn't restore. So again, you might be getting hours of sleep, but not architecture, meaning you're not spending adequate time in deep sleep or REM. This is where your brain consolidates memory and clears metabolic waste through the glymphatic system. If you're waking at 2 or 3 a.m. and you can't get back to sleep, that's a cortisol spike. And if you're sleeping through, but you're waking exhausted, then it's often like a progesterone deficiency or blood sugar dysregulation overnight. And then the fifth signal that we see is a flat emotional baseline. This is one of the hardest for high performing women to name because it's not depression, it's not anxiety, it's more like a muting. Things that used to excite you don't quite land the same way. Your patience is shorter, your enthusiasm is lower, your drive, the thing that really makes you who you are, feels like it's at 60 or 70%. That is often progesterone, testosterone, and dopamine pathway dysfunction. It's not a personality change, it's a biochemical one. If you heard yourself in any one of those five, that's data. That's your body communicating. The question is whether you have someone in your corner who knows how to listen to it. So let's get into what does it actually look like now to optimize versus just survive, just manage a baseline of health. And let me tell you what we're actually measuring when I sit down with a new patient, because it's very difficult from what you've probably ordered at your annual physical to decipher these type of things. A standard physical is going to look at a CBC or a basic comprehensive metabolic panel. Maybe they'll look at your TSH and maybe they'll look at a lipid panel. That's usually it. And that's what most physicians are using to determine whether you're healthy. The problem is that none of those tests measure optimization. They measure pathology and only gross pathology at that. And so here's what a functional workup will actually look like. On the hormonal side, I'm looking at a full thyroid panel, not just TSH. TSH tells me your pituitary is sending a signal. That's it. It doesn't tell me that your cells are actually using thyroid hormone. I want to see the free T3, free T4, reverse T3, and thyroid antibodies. A woman can have normal TSH and be functionally hypothyroid. And I see this all the time. We also look at a full sex hormone panel: estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, sex hormone binding globulin. Is your body creating and then actually utilizing the hormones, or is it creating them and holding them because it's blocked? And we look at cortisol, and not just a single draw, but ideally a 4-point salivary cortisol to see the actual diurnal rhythm. Is it spiking in the morning? Does it crash by noon? Is it elevated at night when it should be low? This rhythm matters enormously. On the metabolic side, we'll see a fasting insulin, not just your glucose. You can have perfectly normal blood glucose and be significantly insulin resistant. I look at hemoglobin A1C. I look at triglyceride to HDL ratio as a proxy for insulin sensitivity. I look at homocysteine and high sensitivity CRP, and these are inflammatory markers. We're going to assess gut function because the gut is the foundation of everything else. Neurotransmitter production, immune regulation, hormone metabolism, nutrient absorption, all of it runs through the gut. And we use a comprehensive stool analysis to look at the microbiome, at digestive enzyme function, inflammatory markers in the gut itself. Then we look at micronutrient status because deficiencies in things like magnesium, zinc, B12, folate, vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids, these all directly impair the systems that I just described. Most people are walking around deficient in multiple nutrients and have no idea because they've never tested for them. This is what a complete picture looks like. And when we have a complete picture, you can actually build a complete solution, not just a guess, not a trial and error, not just here's some medication, let me know if it works. This is a protocol built specifically for your biochemistry. Sarah, the patient I told you about at the start, within 90 days of her personalized protocol, she was waking up before her alarm feeling rested. The afternoon crash was gone. She lost somewhere around like 11, 12 pounds without changing her exercise and with only targeted dietary adjustments. She told me at her follow-up that she felt like herself again for the first time in years. And these are the stories that we're seeing all the time. It's not a miracle. This is what happens when you stop treating the floor and start building toward the ceiling. And so there's an identity shift that needs to happen because, we need to take the thought of just surviving, just being a patient to optimizing your health to be able to carry your body and carry you and your family and your loved ones for as long as possible. Because isn't that the goal? And so I really want to close with something that's more philosophical, really, than clinical, because I think it's actually the most important piece. The conventional medical model is built around a reactive identity. You're a patient. You present with a problem. The system responds to the problem. You go home and you wait for the next problem. That model is not built for you. It is not built for the woman who wants to be exceptional at 55 the way she was at 35. It is not built for longevity. It is not built for performance. It's built for crisis management. The identity I work with, the one I want every patient at Ascend Functional Health to carry, is that of an optimizer, someone who understands that their biology is a system and that systems can be measured, supported, and improved. That the investment you make is understanding your own body now pays dividends for the next 30 years. 50 is not the beginning of decline. 50 is the first time most women have enough data, enough life experience, enough self-awareness to actually do this right. The women I see who optimize in their 50s are often performing at a higher level in their 60s than they were in their 40s. And that is not an accident. That's an intentional decision. The question is not whether you can feel better than you do right now. You absolutely can. The question is whether you have the right person, the right people, the right accountability to help you get there. And so over the next 3 weeks, stay tuned. I'm going to be releasing 3 more episodes in this series. We're going to talk about the real conversations of taking your health seriously and what inaction is actually costing you. We're going to break down clinically why the things you've already tried haven't produced lasting results. And we're going to talk about what thriving in your 50s, 60s, and beyond actually looks like and how you get there. So if you're listening to this and something landed with you, if you heard yourself in the 5 signals that I mentioned, if Sarah's story sounded familiar to you, I want to hear from you. You don't have to be sick to come to Ascend Functional Health. You don't have to have a diagnosis. You just have to be done accepting less than what your body is capable of. So you can always book a discovery call at the link in the show notes. If you have lab tests already done, bring them with you. If you don't, we can start fresh. Either way, we're going to get you a complete picture and a real plan. Again, I'm Dr. Alessi. Thank you for joining me on Health Decoded, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in to Health Decoded, where we break down the truth about all things health and empower you to take charge of your well-being. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. For more resources, personalized support, or to have your questions answered live on the show, visit Ascend Functional Health and head to the contact page to connect with us directly. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and remember, your health is in your hands.